What is satire? What is offensive speech? What is hate? How will we ever decide? Now, of course, the answer is that somebody decides for you. Okay, another human being decides. Of course, in the absence of God, the prophets and disciples of the modern religion of censorship have found a new axiom, a new way to moral virtue and universal truth, a new God: censorship. Okay, just get rid of all the opinions you don't like. Now, how do you justify getting rid of all the information and the viewpoints and the opinions that you despise? Well, it's difficult to tell because, as Scott Adams often says, we have two movies on one screen. What you see, reality, objective, outer world reality, it's observable. You can see what's happening. Everybody can agree on the consensus that it is reality. But then you have two different people, two different observers. It's like a quantum thing. You have two different participants observing what's going on, and they both have their own perspective. And of course, in this world, we have over 7 billion different philosophies, 7 billion different perspectives and lives and lifestyles out there. Just little tiny differences sometimes between two people, the way they live their life or view the world. But they're all different. We are all individuals, of course. And so when you look at something, a really good satire falls right in that sort of linguistic uncanny valley that I talked about in my last video called Tweet. But you have this comedy, this thing that's supposed to be humorous. The intention is humor, but two people look at it and they see something different. And sometimes, even if they agree or if they disagree, it doesn't matter what it is, they don't know whether it's a joke or not. Like, I was fooled the other day. Who was it? Somebody put up an amazing piece of satire, and I didn't know if they were a social justice disciple or if they were just somebody joking around, because they had every single obvious cue that you see on their Twitter profile. And Stefan Molyneux was also fooled. But then, of course, after reviewing the context of everything that was going on, I'm like, oh, that's really good satire. So, what is satire? What is offensive? What is offensive speech? Like, if you have a TOS, a terms of service, and you're like, well, we have safeguards against offensive speech, offensive content. Well, what if that content doesn't offend me? What if that content doesn't offend you? Is it still offensive content? Is it offensive speech? And of course, it comes to the question we always talk about: hate speech. What is hate? Now, according to my new tweet, you can check out on my Twitter, infantilization engine, criticism can be construed as hate. Some people consider criticism to be a form of hate. Any kind of digging down, getting to the nuts and bolts of something, if it happens to be, sort of revealing some inconvenient or uncomfortable truths that offend people, they call it offensive speech. They call it hate speech. These are all nebulous terms that don't really have a solid definition. So it's always somebody making that judgment call. There's always somebody near the top or at the top, an authority figure that goes ahead and makes the call. Okay, so it's important who's on the Supreme Court in this country for that reason. Like, somebody looking at a situation and going, well, this counts as a freedom. This is a place where this person has the human right, the constitutional right to free speech. And then if two people view free speech itself, if they're running around advocating for censorship and they're doing it in the name of free speech, obviously they have a different perspective than those that aren't. It's a separate point of view. You know, it's not that anybody's truly right or wrong. It's just you have to, define what's happening accurately. And that, in a subjective world, in a world with so many perspectives, it's very, very difficult. So I err on the side of free speech absolutism, and it's really, of course, then I would be deciding. Okay, this is the thing about free speech. When I go around telling you the definition of it, I'm being an authority figure, and that's problematic as well. Okay, so it's always the person that tries to define free speech for you. The person that tries to define free speech for you is immediately pulling into authoritarian territory, and it's a dicey road, of course. So we have to be very, very careful. So that's how we would decide. We would just make an arbitrary decision. And of course, when it comes to these companies like YouTube, I'm on YouTube, so hey, I love you, YouTube. I use YouTube Premium. I am a customer. I spend $120 a year to get away from those ads. But we've seen cases, actually. We talk about advertisers. The advertisers. It's not the algorithm that demoted you or demonetized you. It was the advertisers. Well, somebody had a video demonetized recently, a major person, I won't name names for obvious reasons, but a major content creator that makes a new video or two every single day was demonetized. They have about 30,000 subscribers. They were demonetized, and yet there were long ads on their videos. So advertisers found them unsavory, and then they had ads anyway? Inappropriate for advertisers, and yet there are really long ads. Team YouTube, I implore you to give us some kind of transparency on this issue. That's the name of the game when it comes to free speech. If you're going to use your, private company status, of course, these companies are subsidized as well. But if you're going to say, well, we won't define ourselves as a platform or a publisher, but we're going to act with the no liability, the low or no liability of a platform, and not get sued for all the weird, illegal content on here. But we are going to use publisher level curation and just decide arbitrarily, without any transparency, what goes. Okay, and then we'll of course use excuses like the algorithm or advertisers. So without transparency, it could be a human or it could be a machine. And that's problematic. You really don't know. I think Scott Adams was talking about this today. You really don't know if you have free speech. Like, I can give you my opinion, I can speak in this room here to this camera, and it's great. But if nobody can hear it, if nobody can see it, if I've been invisibly suppressed without my knowledge or consent, and I'm just not informed and it's not transparent, do I really have free speech? It's a really great question.